What if I told you that one of the most effective things you could do for your blood sugar, your muscle mass, your metabolism, and the quality of your sleep after 50 costs less than $2 a jar, takes 30 seconds to prepare, and most people already have sitting in their kitchen cabinet right now? I am not talking about a supplement. I am not talking about a medication. I am talking about peanut butter. Specifically, 1 tablespoon of natural peanut butter eaten in the 30 minutes before bed. Now, before you dismiss this as too simple to be real, stay with me. Because what happens inside your body overnight when you consume peanut butter before sleep is genuinely interesting. It is grounded in real research, and it is particularly relevant for adults over 50 in ways that most people have never heard explained. Today, I am going to walk you through exactly what the science shows, what peanut butter does to your blood sugar overnight, what it does to your muscle tissue while you sleep, how it interacts with your metabolism during the fasting hours, why the specific timing matters, and what type of peanut butter produces these effects versus the ones that do not. And I will give you a complete practical guide so you can decide whether this is something worth incorporating into your own routine. I am Dr. Wells, and this is WellAge Health, honest, evidence-based health information for adults over 55 every single week. Before we go further, if you have a peanut allergy, everything I share about peanut butter applies equally to almond butter or cashew butter, which have similar nutritional profiles. And if you are managing diabetes with insulin, please pay particular attention to the blood sugar section of this video and discuss any change in your bedtime routine with your doctor, because bedtime snacking can interact with nighttime insulin management. Let's start with blood sugar, because this is where the overnight effect of peanut butter is most directly relevant to adults over 50. When you eat dinner and then go to sleep without eating anything else, your body enters a fasting state. Blood glucose drops gradually as your cells continue to use glucose for energy throughout the night. In healthy adults with normal insulin function, this overnight drop is smooth and gradual. Blood sugar falls to a stable low and remains there until morning. But in adults over 50, particularly those with pre-diabetes, insulin resistance, or type 2 diabetes, the overnight blood sugar pattern is often far less stable. 2 specific problems occur that most people are unaware of. The first is called the dawn phenomenon. In the early morning hours, typically between 3 and 8 o'clock, the body releases a surge of hormones, including cortisol, growth hormone, and glucagon, that signal the liver to release stored glucose in preparation for the day ahead. In people with insulin resistance, this hepatic glucose release is excessive and the insulin response is inadequate, producing elevated fasting blood sugar in the morning that is sometimes higher than the bedtime reading, even though no food was consumed overnight. The second problem is reactive hypoglycemia during sleep. In some adults with blood sugar dysregulation, blood glucose drops too low in the overnight hours, triggering a counter-regulatory hormone response that causes the liver to dump glucose rapidly, producing a rebound blood sugar elevation. This overnight blood sugar roller coaster disrupts sleep quality, triggers cortisol responses that fragment sleep architecture, and contributes to morning fatigue, brain fog, and increased hunger and carbohydrate cravings the following day. Here is where peanut butter becomes relevant. A small bedtime snack containing protein and fat without significant carbohydrate has been shown in multiple studies to smooth the overnight blood sugar curve in adults with blood sugar dysregulation. The mechanisms are straightforward. Protein, and peanut butter contains approximately 8 grams of protein per 2 tablespoons, stimulates a modest sustained insulin secretion that prevents the overnight glucose drop from falling too far, reducing the likelihood of reactive hypoglycemia and the rebound glucose surge it triggers. The protein also provides a slow trickle of amino acids overnight that partially blunts the dawn phenomenon by occupying the liver's metabolic attention. The fat in peanut butter, approximately 16 grams per 2 tablespoons, predominantly monounsaturated, further slows gastric emptying and provides a sustained source of slow-releasing energy that supports metabolic stability during the fasting window. Monounsaturated fat, the same type found in olive oil and avocado, does not raise blood sugar and does not trigger an insulin response. It simply provides a slow-burning fuel that the body can use during the overnight hours without disrupting glucose homeostasis. A study published in the journal Nutrients specifically examined the effect of a small protein and fat bedtime snack on overnight and morning blood glucose in adults with type 2 diabetes. The group consuming a small bedtime snack with protein and fat showed significantly lower dawn phenomenon blood glucose elevations and more stable overnight glucose profiles compared to the group who went to bed without eating. The improvement in fasting morning glucose was particularly notable, an outcome that most adults managing blood sugar consider one of the most difficult to improve. For adults over 50 without diabetes who are noticing that their fasting blood sugar is creeping upward, or who wake up feeling hungry, foggy, or unrefreshed, the overnight glucose instability pattern is a common and under-recognized contributor. A small peanut butter snack before bed addresses this directly without requiring medication, without significant caloric cost, and without disrupting the dietary patterns of the rest of the day. Now let's talk about muscle, because this is the second major overnight benefit of peanut butter for adults over 50, and it is one that most people have never considered. After the age of 50, the human body begins to lose muscle mass at a rate of approximately 1 to 2% per year in the absence of deliberate resistance training and adequate protein intake. This process is called sarcopenia, and its consequences extend far beyond appearance. Muscle mass is the primary determinant of metabolic rate, insulin sensitivity, physical function, fall risk, and long-term independence in older adults. The loss of muscle mass after 50 is directly associated with increased risk of type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, cognitive decline, and mortality. The rate of muscle protein synthesis, the process by which your body builds and repairs muscle tissue, is highest during the overnight hours. This is when growth hormone reaches its peak, when cellular repair processes are most active, and when the amino acids from protein consumed during the day are most efficiently incorporated into muscle tissue. But here is the problem. By the time most adults over 50 go to sleep, 5 to 7 hours have passed since their last protein-containing meal. The amino acid availability in the bloodstream, which muscle protein synthesis requires, has fallen to low levels. Muscle tissue is now being maintained primarily on the protein already in circulation, which is insufficient for optimal overnight synthesis in older adults whose protein turnover rate is already less efficient than in younger decades. Research published in the journal Medicine and Science in Sports and Exercise, one of the most respected exercise physiology publications, found that consuming protein in the 30 to 40 minutes before sleep significantly increased overnight muscle protein synthesis compared to going to bed without protein. The amino acids from the pre-sleep protein were directly incorporated into muscle tissue during the overnight hours, producing measurably greater muscle repair and maintenance compared to the group who consumed the same total daily protein but distributed none of it to the pre-sleep window. Peanut butter provides approximately 8 grams of protein per 2 tablespoons, enough to meaningfully raise amino acid availability in the overnight hours. It also contains arginine, an amino acid that serves as a precursor to nitric oxide, a compound that dilates blood vessels and improves circulation to muscle tissue. Improved overnight blood flow to muscle enhances both the delivery of amino acids and the removal of metabolic waste products from muscle tissue, a secondary benefit of the arginine content that most discussions of pre-sleep protein overlook. For adults over 50 who are doing any form of resistance training or physical activity, walking, light weights, yoga, swimming, the pre-sleep protein window is one of the most underutilized recovery strategies available. The muscle tissue being repaired and strengthened overnight is the muscle that protects your joints, maintains your balance, powers your movement, and keeps your metabolism functioning at a rate that prevents weight gain. Providing it with amino acids during the window when it is most actively repairing itself is simply good physiology. Now let's talk about metabolism and sleep quality, because the overnight effects of peanut butter extend beyond blood sugar and muscle to the overall metabolic environment during sleep. Your resting metabolic rate, the number of calories your body burns simply to maintain itself, is not constant during sleep. It fluctuates based on the hormonal environment, the availability of substrates for energy production, and the degree of thermogenic activity occurring in your body's tissues overnight. Research on sleep metabolism has found that consuming a small amount of protein and fat in the pre-sleep window slightly increases thermogenesis, heat production, and calorie burning during sleep compared to going to bed in a fully fasted state. The increase is modest. Studies typically show a 5 to 10% elevation in overnight metabolic rate with pre-sleep protein, but it is consistent across multiple studies and represents a real metabolic effect. For adults over 50 who are managing weight, this slightly elevated overnight metabolic rate has 2 practical implications. First, it contributes to a marginally higher total daily energy expenditure without requiring additional exercise. Second, it suggests that the common advice to stop eating entirely after dinner, which treats all evening calories as equally problematic for weight management, does not account for the metabolic effect of small protein and fat dominant pre-sleep snacks, which appear to be treated differently by the body than carbohydrate heavy evening eating. Large carbohydrate heavy evening meals and snacks, the kind most commonly associated with nighttime eating problems, do promote fat storage, raise triglycerides, disrupt sleep architecture, and contribute to weight gain over time. This is well established, but a small protein and fat dominant snack, 1 tablespoon of natural peanut butter, or 2 tablespoons at most, does not trigger the same response. It does not cause an insulin surge. It does not elevate triglycerides in the overnight fasting state. It provides sustained energy for overnight metabolic and repair processes without the lipogenic, fat-promoting effect of carbohydrate-heavy late eating. Now let's talk about sleep quality directly, because the connection between peanut butter and sleep quality has a specific mechanism that most people find surprising. Peanuts and peanut butter contain tryptophan. Tryptophan is an essential amino acid that is the direct precursor to serotonin, which is in turn the precursor to melatonin. the hormone that regulates your sleep-wake cycle and the depth and quality of your sleep. The conversion of tryptophan to serotonin and then to melatonin requires cofactors including vitamin B6, magnesium, and a sufficient insulin response to allow tryptophan to cross the blood-brain barrier. Peanut butter provides small but meaningful amounts of both vitamin B6 and magnesium, supporting the cofactor availability for this conversion. And the small protein-stimulated insulin response from the peanut butter assists tryptophan transport into the brain, where the conversion to serotonin and melatonin occurs. This mechanism is modest. Peanut butter is not a melatonin supplement, and the effect on sleep quality is subtle rather than dramatic. But for adults over 50 whose melatonin production naturally declines with age and whose sleep architecture becomes progressively lighter and more fragmented, every incremental support for the melatonin pathway has practical relevance. Peanut butter also contains niacin, vitamin B3, which has been studied for its role in the nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide pathway. NAD+ is a coenzyme that declines significantly with age and is involved in cellular energy production, DNA repair, and circadian rhythm regulation, all of which influence sleep quality. While the amount of niacin in 1 tablespoon of peanut butter is not sufficient to dramatically influence NAD+ levels, it contributes to the overall micronutrient profile that supports overnight cellular repair. Let's talk about what type of peanut butter produces these benefits, because this distinction matters considerably. Natural peanut butter, made from peanuts and salt only, with no added sugar, no hydrogenated oils, and no stabilizers, is what the research on peanut butter and metabolic health refers to. The nutritional profile is straightforward: protein, monounsaturated fat, fiber, magnesium, vitamin B6, niacin, arginine, and tryptophan, with minimal carbohydrate and no added sugar. Commercial peanut butter, the major brand varieties that have been market leaders for decades, typically contains added sugar, often 2 to 4 grams per serving, and hydrogenated vegetable oils added to prevent the natural oil separation that occurs in natural peanut butter. The hydrogenated oils are a source of trans fats. Even products that label themselves as zero trans fats can contain up to 0.5 grams per serving under FDA labeling rules, which is not zero. For adults over 50 who are monitoring cardiovascular health, regular consumption of trans fats from hydrogenated oils is a concern that natural peanut butter entirely avoids. The added sugar in commercial peanut butter, while small per serving, does produce a slightly elevated insulin response compared to natural peanut butter. For the blood sugar stabilization effect I described, you want the protein and fat of peanut butter without the insulin trigger of added sugar. Natural peanut butter provides exactly this. Commercial varieties do so less cleanly. Check the ingredient list. Natural peanut butter should contain peanuts and ideally salt as the only other ingredient. If you see sugar, corn syrup, molasses, or any hydrogenated or partially hydrogenated oil in the ingredient list, that is a commercial variety that does not provide the same metabolic profile. One practical note about natural peanut butter: the oil separation that occurs as the peanut oil rises to the top of the jar is natural and expected. Stir the jar thoroughly when you first open it, then store it upside down in the refrigerator. This keeps the oil incorporated without requiring repeated stirring and produces a more consistent texture throughout the jar. The amount that appears in most of the research on pre-sleep protein and fat snacking is 1 to 2 tablespoons, approximately 90 to 190 calories, 4 to 8 grams of protein, and 8 to 16 grams of fat. 1 tablespoon is appropriate for adults managing weight or caloric intake closely. 2 tablespoons is appropriate for adults who are more active, who have higher protein needs, or who are specifically targeting muscle maintenance as a primary goal. Eating peanut butter directly from the spoon is perfectly effective. Spreading it on a thin slice of whole grain bread adds fiber that further slows glucose absorption overnight, but also adds carbohydrates that mildly increase the insulin response. For pure blood sugar stabilization effect, peanut butter alone or on a thin slice of apple provides the best balance. For muscle synthesis specifically, peanut butter alone or stirred into a small amount of cottage cheese, which adds casein protein for even slower overnight amino acid release, is a particularly effective pre-sleep combination. Here is your complete practical guide. Step 1. Choose natural peanut butter. Read the ingredient list. Peanuts and salt only. No sugar, no hydrogenated oils. Step 2. Eat 1 tablespoon 30 minutes before bed, not immediately before lying down. The slight delay allows gastric processing to begin and the amino acid and fatty acid profiles to enter circulation before sleep. Step 3. Eat it alone on a thin apple slice or stirred into 2 tablespoons of cottage cheese for enhanced overnight protein availability. Avoid pairing it with crackers, bread, or any significant carbohydrate source if blood sugar management is your primary goal. Step 4. Track your morning fasting blood sugar for 2 weeks if you monitor at home. Most adults with blood sugar dysregulation see a measurable change in their morning fasting glucose within 1 to 2 weeks of consistent pre-sleep peanut butter consumption. Step 5. Track how you feel upon waking. Morning hunger, energy level, and mental clarity are practical indicators of overnight metabolic stability. Adults who previously woke feeling hungry, foggy, or unrested often report improvement within 1 to 2 weeks of establishing this pre-sleep habit. Step 6. Be consistent. Single-night effects of pre-sleep nutrition are modest. The benefits accumulate over weeks of consistent practice as your overnight blood sugar curve stabilizes, your muscle protein synthesis consistently receives amino acid availability, and your tryptophan to melatonin pathway receives regular support. Step 7. If you have diabetes and you are on insulin, track your blood sugar before bed and upon waking for the first week after starting this habit, and share the pattern with your doctor. The blood sugar stabilization effect of pre-sleep protein and fat may affect your overnight insulin requirements, and your physician needs to be aware of any significant change in your fasting morning glucose pattern. 1 tablespoon of natural peanut butter, 30 minutes before bed, 7 nights a week. It takes 30 seconds, costs pennies, and addresses 4 separate physiological processes: blood sugar stability, overnight muscle protein synthesis, metabolic rate during sleep, and melatonin precursor availability that are all more relevant and more impactful after 50 than at any previous point in your life. The simplest interventions are often the ones that actually get done consistently. This is about as simple as it gets. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe. I cover topics exactly like this every week. Leave a comment and tell me whether you already eat anything before bed, and whether you have ever noticed how your morning blood sugar or morning energy differs based on what you ate the night before. I read every comment, and your experience helps me understand what this community needs most.